company.
Whoa, they're spicy today. Can we stop for some burgers? I'm getting hungry. We can still hold a rally today, right?
I didn't sign up for this.
Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for being on the program. I deeply appreciate your joining us today because these are complicated issues and I don't portend to know exactly what's going on here with Ryan Routh seeking Ukrainian weapons. I know that Tucker's talked extensively about it, and I know a lot of people that I respect from a military perspective have said that the Ukrainians are selling our weapons and that they're doing so in order to try and reset some of the global order, and that they've been used in assassination attempts before. I didn't know that they were used or tried to be used in an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. It came as a shock to me this morning. The floor is yours. How prevalent is this?
Well, that's one of the biggest questions that we've had for years, is that the United States government has given so many weapons and so much ammunition to Ukraine with no tracking system. We have no idea where these things have been going. This has been reported since the first year of the war. This is not anything recent. And yet we continue to shovel this stuff in there without any kind of guardrails or assurances that it's only going for the purpose that we say. So naturally, it's going to show up in all other kinds of places, because Ukraine, before the war started, was the most corrupt country, genuinely, point blank, in all of Europe. And of course, when you throw in billions of dollars with no kind of constraints, it's only going to feed it and grow it on steroids, which is exactly what happened. So it is a shock to me that this happened, but it's not a surprise that it happened, because if you have a crazy person like this Roth fellow, there is no shortage of people willing to sell anything to anyone for some money. So it's not surprising that he tried to get it. But this just really is just another evidence of the incompetence of what the U.S. government had done, especially prior to Trump entering the picture, which worked against American national interest and never gave Ukraine a chance to win.
So this is something that I think a lot of Americans are going to want to know. Who was responsible for this connection to the Ukrainian military? Is this something that happens with regularity? Are the weapons that we send to Ukraine being sold on the black market to assist in extrajudicial killings of the enemies of the state of Ukraine? Have you heard anything about that? Do you know anything about that practice?
I've certainly seen evidence of it. I haven't heard anything. I don't have any direct contacts in that. But that is one of the biggest questions I've got. How far up the chain in the Ukraine side was this knowledge? Because one of the things I was frankly worried about, even before we found out about these direct connections with Roth, was that there are many people in Ukraine that definitely did not want Donald Trump to win, don't like the direction he's going in now, because they only want more support. They don't want to end the war under any circumstances. And I have been concerned that some may be willing to take action on that. So I think it is vitally important that we find out exactly where these so-called associates were in this DOJ report. How high up the chain did they go? Because what you're showing on the screen there from that Oval Office exchange could be the least thing that Trump may want to do if this turns out to go up that high.
So when an American shipment of weapons goes to the battlefield, how would that process work to get an RPG or a Stinger missile back into the United States? Would it have to be smuggled through the cartels and then come into the United States, obviously illegally, and then get into the hands of a potential assassin? How would this process work?
Yeah, there is an entire network inside Ukraine of all kinds of black market operations. I literally was communicating with someone from Kiev just earlier this morning on a related topic about these networks that have been going on there, some to get people out. There's huge bribes that have to go to try to prevent guys from being grabbed off the streets, and $30,000 to $50,000 a pop, and to get people smuggled out. So it is easy to use those same networks to get something smuggled out instead of a person. And believe me, along these people here, they have no morals at all. They have no problem sending weapons, ammunition, or people, even traffic. So if that's what's going to make them money.
So this is happening in Ukraine. We know this is happening in Ukraine. Zelenskyy, I think, just purchased a platinum mine in Africa, which is totally what you do when you're at war and when you're impoverished and you need American dollars. How much of a fraud on the American taxpayer is the Ukraine war? What's your professional take, given the fact that you've served and I have not, sir?
I have been saying since before the war started and every day since that this war was always unwinnable on the Ukraine side. There was no rational path to success. The fact that our government kept going down this path and telling us for the first 3 years that it was winnable, that they were winning, that they're on the right path, all of these things that they said, which they said during the Afghan war as well. Oh, they just sent them over to here, but it was never true. So all we've been doing by sending billions of American dollars and European dollars or euros and all of these weapons, depleting our own forces, all it's doing is getting more Ukrainians killed in the predictable end to this war that's going to see Russia on the top side. So I think it is a tremendous fraud and a waste of resources, a waste of lives, and a tragedy for Ukraine that we supported something that could never work.
So now that we're seeing the fallout from all of this and the backlash and the potential murder of our president, soon to be president, what's the American public's response to this? I mean, these are shocking claims inside of this DOJ report. It's a 21-page report. There's so much more densely packed in there, but just this alone is enough to, I think, really reset people's minds on what's happening in Ukraine, where this man is smuggling ISIS fighters and fighters from Afghanistan and Iran into Ukraine with no-look visas. How the hell is that even off? How does that work exactly? And then as soon as he needs an illegal weapon to shoot Trump's plane out of the sky, he goes right to Ukraine and said, hey, give me, you lose these one a day. Just give me one. That is ripping the bark off that operation is repulsive to actually see it in writing there.
It was. It really is shocking. And I'm looking forward to getting into more detail of that. But just what we've seen so far, just what's enough of that is enough to I think, really just take the goggles off and the blinders off and say, look, this guy, Zelenskyy, is not a democratic leader that he gets portrayed as all the time. I know they want to say he's a Churchillian figure, but when you look at his actual actions, and Tucker Carlson has just told this out many times, he is not a Democrat. He is hanging on to power beyond his term. He has silenced political parties, media, shut down even religious organizations he doesn't like, has control over all the people, et cetera, and is doing all these corruption things. That's not democratic, and that's not what we should be supporting in Ukraine. We should be trying to save the lives of the Ukrainian people despite their leader who is leading them to destruction. In my view, he is not a rational partner that Trump can work with because he can't make rational decisions, and I think Trump needs to give him an ultimatum or be willing to walk. I really do think we're there.
I think certainly we are there, and the wholesale loss of life in this war that was totally and completely unnecessary is a moral and a mortal evil, and that is why we are against this war, and we want it to end as quickly and as peacefully as possible. And an ugly peace is far better than a hot war that is slaughtering entire generations. We believe that in our bones. So, what do you believe, Lieutenant Colonel, if the Ukrainian government is found to have had foreknowledge of a Trump assassination attempt and not warned anybody, what will happen then?
Well, I think that we have to take some very strong concerted efforts, and I think that we need to insist that Zelenskyy step down and face whatever justice that his government requires. But I think we should insist upon it if that's proven. If it went all the way up to him and he had knowledge, you can't just turn a blind eye to this one. You can't just hit somebody on the wrist. I think this takes concerted effort, and we need to be taking action that's pretty harsh in that. I mean, anything less, I think, is going to be, encouraging other people to go down the same path.
Something that is, of course, very near and dear to your extensive and dignified and honored career in our American military and service is your love of this country, clearly provable. You want this country to be protected, and you want our borders to be secure, and you want us to be protected against enemies, foreign and domestic. The operation here, according to these documents, constantly used the cartels and the open border in order to facilitate human smuggling, in order to facilitate his escape route, in order to facilitate the weapons smuggling. It was all going to go through our southern border. That was left open. Now you're looking at it like, was this on purpose, actually? Like, was this the purpose of the open border? From a military perspective, how vulnerable were we given the cartel operations on the border and the inability to secure?
I certainly can't say whether it was intentional or whether just incompetence. I don't know. But the net is the same, is that there was, by the border being wide open, there was always the possibility that almost anyone could come in. I mean, obviously, the problem with cartel or crime, people who want to come in and do crime to the country, that's always been a problem. But as a national security aspect, I often worry about the potential for some of our possible potential adversaries bringing people in to get them embedded into the U.S. countryside for the potential to act as sleeper cells someday. I know that sounds conspiratorial, but I mean, I'm just looking at it from a practical perspective. If you thought you were going to someday might go to war against the United States, it's rational and logical that you want to put somebody in to maybe cause damage inside the United States, since obviously it's so hard to get at from the oceans. And once a war is broken out, then people will be looking. But if you get somebody in there early, then they can become part of the fabric and no one would even notice them. So that is something that I have always worried about, and I'm grateful that we're finally doing something to close that off. But we've got some problems that are probably already in there.
So that's certainly something that has been verified, that we have members on the terrorist watch list that have come into this country and that they are obviously not here for cultural enrichment, let's just call it. Tell me about these weapons, the RPGs and the Stinger missiles. Could those weapons have brought down President Trump's jet?
Oh yeah, without question, in my view, especially if you get yourself set up like either just as the jet takes off or as it's coming in. If you're able to get in our country, it's not that hard to find some of these places. It's not like they're blocked off. If you have knowledge about where the plane's going to be, these things can be very effective at knocking them down. I mean, we saw that they are very effective against fighter jets and other combat aircraft that are in the zone right now. And if you get one of those, especially at short range, I'm sure that there's countermeasures on board Air Force One. I don't know all the details, but I can only imagine there is. But at that short range, when it's just about to land or just after it takes off, there may not be time for those countermeasures to work. So it is a real risk.
A real risk, certainly, if you have a Trump Force One that isn't Air Force One. The idea was to kill Trump before he had the full military package and to go after his plane, which, to my knowledge, doesn't have the type of sophisticated anti-aircraft capacity that an Air Force One would have. You have to just assume that. Yes?
Right. Yeah, that's a fair statement.
So you would be able to take that plane out even easier with a weapon like this. Have you ever seen weapons like? Have you seen these deployed in the field of battle? Do you have any experience with these style weapons?
I have not. No, I was from the Armored Force M1 tank groups or whatever, so I had access to that stuff. I personally never saw one of those, but certainly know very well their capability. Okay,
so it would have been a relatively easy shot if you were staking out the Palm Beach International Airport, which was amazing. It's actually amazing, Lieutenant Colonel. We landed there the other day, and we landed right next to the president's plane. You can see it there. And the entire plane had a barricade of dump trucks around it, which I thought was quite remarkable. So there's a physical wall and barricade, like a massive metal trucks surrounding the plane, probably because they knew this, actually.
Frankly, I've been surprised. I'm gratefully surprised that nothing like this has even been attempted so far, or that some of these new drones, these attack drones, which are now ubiquitous all over the place. I worry about those things coming into play as well, but I'm grateful that hadn't happened so far.
Yeah, no kidding. That's got to be the reason for the indoor inauguration, but I'll let smarter people with more access to classified information opine on that. I just want to thank you very much for being on the program and for giving us these insights, because these are scary times, and there were multiple assassination attempts on the president's life, and I think we should take this kind of stuff seriously.
Absolutely.
And and maybe stop funding the people. Maybe stop funding the people that are part of it.
That'd be a good start.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Everybody, Daniel Davis is here on X. Okay, you should follow him. Also, he has a great YouTube channel that you should check out that dives very, very deep. It's called Deep Dive right there, and I see one of those Chinese drones right up there in your profile, sir.
Yes, it is.
So sending a message, and we just want to say thank you for being on the program.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.